Okay, so started recording the meeting. So to start with, I wanted to outline what our approach has been to date. With the guidance that we've issued right from April, May time, we have been doing that in collaboration with volunteers. We've had a group of 6 volunteers that have helping us write that guidance, and we've been testing that with them throughout the last couple of months. So we've been writing up the guidance, and then we've been debating that as a group and making sure that we come out with something that is acceptable to everybody. We've also been in talks with Sport England and ultimately DCMS, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and looking at other sports guidance and talking to other sports as well, so that we've been sharing that information as well. Ultimately, the guidance that we've issued is looking at time, distance and shielding. So we're trying to minimise the time near a possible source. We've been increasing the distance between you and somebody else. And we're asking, obviously, people to use either PPE, face coverings at certain times. There's just a couple of people not muted, so I've just muted you, I'm afraid. So we'll be looking at time, distance and shielding throughout this guidance to minimise any exposure to the virus. So that's been our approach to date. You would have seen some of the guidance that we issued earlier on in the year, and those colourful documents on the right hand side of the presentation. So we've got guidance notes for clubs, for coaches and for archers, and those in the last week or so have been updated with this new guidance. So that's version 4. And it was issued on the, or it's got a date issue of the 27th of November. So if you haven't seen them, please go in and get those documents. They have been refreshed and revised. We've stripped out some of the old information and just made sure that it's the essential information that you need to know. And then on the new document that we shared with club secretaries last Friday, which is available on the website as well, is the one on the left, the blue and the green tables, which is a summary of the archery COVID restrictions that we've drawn up for all 3 tiers. So the blue is indoor archery and the green is outdoor archery, and they cover the main elements in terms of social distancing, travel, target spacing, coaching, beginners, etc. So that's quite a nice document there that's quick and easy to have a look at. That is the link. I know it's quite a long link, but that is the link that would take you to the guidance from the home page. Quick and easy thing to do is just to click on this button here, which is the club information COVID-19 under quick links. So that will take you from the home page directly to the web page that has all of those documents available to you to download. So if you haven't made it there yet, then I would suggest you go there later on. I'm going to run through the main restrictions for outdoor and indoor archery and then run through some questions. I think outdoor archery will probably be quite easy to understand, but there has been a couple of changes that we've made, and I will run through those. Outdoor archery can take place across all tiers, and we are saying that you can have up to 4 archers per target boss, and that the minimum target spacing is 3.66 meters. Now, there's a couple of changes there, and the key words are up to and minimum. So it doesn't mean that you have to offer targets with 4 archers on it. It doesn't mean that you have to put all your targets at 3.66 meters. Many of you have been having your target spacing at 4 and 5 meters, And if that was the case before lockdown, and that's the case that you want to continue with, then that is absolutely fine. The reason it states minimum of 3.66 is that some clubs have permanent markings at 3.66 because obviously that's the target spacing that's in the rules of shooting, albeit for shooting in threes. But that's the minimum that we require. It still allows people to shoot staying 2 meters apart at all times. And up to 4 archers per target boss. Again, if your club doesn't want to offer targets with 4 archers on it, then you don't have to. You need to offer something that you and your members are comfortable with. But in some cases, some clubs have the space, have the availability to offer that. So it's up to 4 archers, not you have to do it at 4 archers, and it's a minimum of 3.66. So as I said, if you were shooting at 4 and 5 meters target spacing, then you can continue to do that. In terms of indoor archery, then as you will have seen, we are saying that archery can take place across all tiers. The main restrictions obviously being in terms of wearing a mask at all times, apart from when you are actively shooting. Obviously, there are exemptions for people in terms of wearing a mask, and that is fine for under 18s and those that are not able to wear one. The target spacing is 2 meters, and that would be with screens in place, as the picture shows. And without screens in place, then the target spacing would have to be 3.3 meters. And then when we get to the number of archers on a target boss, then from tier 1, we've got 2 archers or a single household using 2 target faces. At tier 2, we've got the same in terms of 2 archers or a single household per target boss, again with a maximum of 2 target faces. Beginners and coaching is permitted in tier 1 and tier 2, and again, as it says on the screen, groups of less than 6 and no mixing between households. When we get to tier 3, and I know this is probably where we'll get most questions, then we are saying that archery can take place at tier 3 indoors. It would have to be 1 archer or a single household per target boss with 1 target face, and no beginners or coaching permitted at tier 3. Now, in terms of tier 3, there is guidance that on the DCMS government website that states that that group activity and indoor classes cannot take place in tier 3. And the debate that we've had is that archery can be done by a single person or a single household on a single target. So therefore, the activity can take place in tier 3 as long as it's being done and there's no by individuals, by single households, and there is no mixing between those households. This is the same that other sports are taking as well in terms of badminton, for instance. For badminton at tier 3, as a single household, you would be able to go and play badminton, and on the court next to you there would be another household playing badminton. So what we're trying to say there is the activity is being done individually on an individual target, and therefore it can take place. There are going to be many other issues that you'll have to contend with, and that will be whether your leisure centre will allow you or indoor venue will allow you to take place. The risk assessment and the guidance that we're putting together obviously can be used, and you can have that conversation with your indoor venue and work with your provider. It might take longer to set up. It might take a bit more time, obviously, to put things away. But if you can talk to your leisure provider, we see no reason why archery cannot take place at Tier 3.
Aaron, we have a few questions come in.
Yep.
So to start at the beginning, David Beaton has asked, with indoor shooting, how does this reconcile with the government rules? And also in Tier 1 and 2, the coaching says groups of 6, but the document says 12 per coach, which is the correct amount.
Okay, so just in terms of the guidance then, the government website says that indoor, sorry, I'm just trying to find it now on the website. Here we go. Gyms and sports facilities will be open for individual exercise and exercise in single households or support bubbles only. So that is the line that that we're going with there, is that in terms of the activity can be set up for individuals. It does then go on to say that indoor group activities and exercise classes should not take place. What we're saying here is that archery can take place as long as it's being done for individuals. And we had a long debate with the group, the volunteer group, and we did all come to the same conclusion on that. What was the next question, Helen? Sorry, just keep me.
In Tier 1 and 2, coaching says groups of 6, but the document says 12 per coach, which is the correct amount.
Just bear with me a second so I can just make sure I'm saying the right thing. I think it is groups of 6 that you can work with, but a coach can work across multiple groups. So a coach can work with up to 12 people, but it would be in 2 groups of 6.
Okay. In Tiers 1 and 2, do the 2 archers need to shoot in detail?
If there's enough space to shoot in detail, I would say yes. There needs to be obviously 2 meters apart at all times. If you've got enough space in your indoor venue to have 2 people in at the same time, but they're 2 meters apart, then that would be okay. But if there isn't enough space, then they would have to obviously shoot in details.
And the next question is, why 1 target face per household? Surely a recipe for arrow damage? That's Tier 3 restrictions.
In Tier 3, I suppose you've probably got a good point there, Dave. If it's 1 household and there's availability to put different target faces on the boss, and it's 1 household using that, then I don't see any reason why we couldn't have additional target faces there.
Aaron, it's David McCullough. We did agree that. I think it's just a typo. We acknowledge that if it was 1 household on that boss, then they could obviously have 2. If they were using a 122 boss, they could have 2 60-centimeter targets or whatever the other types of target mixes happen.
Yeah.
The important thing was it's 1 household, so therefore contact with the paper and everything doesn't really matter so much.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Okay. We have a question from Jez. The 4 archers to a boss, is that in details? Are details limited to bubbles? But I think we probably just covered that in the earlier question. Jeff has asked to define have a goes against taster sessions.
Okay, so a have a go is targets on the floor where somebody comes up and you hand them a bow and arrows and they shoot 3 or 6 arrows. A taster session is the step in between a beginner have a go and a beginner's course. So you might not be telling them how to assemble their bow, but you might be just giving them an hour's worth of activity. You could shoot arrows and learn a bit more about how archery is undertaken. There is some more information on the have a goes, taster sessions, etc. in the document that we produced. Helen, the name of it, just
the code of practice for archery
practice. Thank you, Helen. The code of practice for archery events. So that details more about that.
Okay. Abby has asked, in tier 3, we have single households with 2 compound archers in them. Can they have 2 3-spot faces touching in the centre of the boss, taking up the room of 160 centimetres face?
Okay, so that's the same as the question from Dave a second ago, then, isn't it? In terms of not so what we've got on screen there says maximum of 1 target face. As David McCulloch said a minute ago, that is a typo there, and so we'll revise that. So as long as it's the main thing is it's either 1 archer or a single household or bubble, and you can then have as many faces as you can fit on a boss if you so wish.
Mm-hmm. Kevin has asked, the latest government guidance states in tier 3 areas, people should not take part in any indoor sport or physical activity with people from outside their household. This includes indoor team and individual sports, training sessions and exercise classes.
Well, if there's some guidance that has been updated, and I know that we were waiting for some guidance from DCMS that hasn't arrived yet. If there's something that's been updated in the last couple of hours and I've not seen,
there is Aaron.
Right. Okay.
So I've just been informed at 5:45 this evening, DCMS or the government have just issued this latest piece of information. So probably the Strategic Advisory Group and others will need to get our heads together on tier 3 to enable the understanding across the organisation.
Right. Okay. I suppose that kind of puts our session in jeopardy then, because I don't want to then potentially give, well, we are potentially giving out wrong information if they've been updated, which is nice of them to update it after hours.
Sorry, Aaron, is that not the same guidance though? Because it says people should not take part in any indoor sport or physical activity with people from outside their household. Well, if we have separate targets and there's only 1 household per target, that was how we met that. You're taking part individually on that target.
Yeah.
And you are not taking part in physical activity just because there's somebody else in the hall more than 2 meters away from you. You are not taking part in physical activity with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's always been the case.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's what we're saying. That's why we've put the guidance as we've put it, that you can do archery as an individual, and hence the reason why we've got that on screen. So we will need to take some time to look at that DCMS guidance, and believe you me, we'll do it. Most of us will probably be doing it straight after this meeting. So you know, that might take up some time, but for now, if we present what we've got on screen, and then we will issue any urgent revisions to that as soon as we can.
There are a few more questions coming in as well.
Okay, well, what we might do, Helen, is to just go through the next couple of slides, because some of those questions might pop up on some of the slides we've got, and then we'll run through the rest of the questions, if that's okay. So these are questions that we've had come in over the last couple of days. They've been asked by a couple of multiple people. So the first one is, does the rule of 6 apply outdoors, and is our new guidance a form of relaxation compared to the old guidance, and if it is, why? So off the shooting line, yes, the rule of 6 does apply outdoors, but on the line, obviously, we're saying it's up to a maximum of 4 archers. So it's just off the line that we need to ensure that people aren't socialising in groups of more than 6. In terms of a relaxation of the guidance, I wouldn't say it's a relaxation, but it is obviously refreshed and hopefully simplified guidance that we're issuing. We've had all the summer happen. We've had some COVID secure competitions happen, and everything that you as club volunteers have put in place have been able to show that the sport can return to some kind of normality. So we've taken all of that on board and been able to refresh the guidance. So like I said at the beginning, I would encourage you to go and just check on the club, the archer and the coach documents that we've uploaded to the website. Quite a lot of the questions we've had around travel. So these next couple of questions cover travel. So the first one is, I work in tier 3, but I live in tier 2 and the club is near work. Can I shoot at my club? No is the answer to that. The exemption to travel in or out of tier 3 is only for work, and there are other exemptions as well, such as education and training and things like that. So unfortunately, if you live in a tier 2, even if you work in tier 3, you wouldn't be able to attend your club. The next question, similar to travel. My club is in tier 2. Some of our members are in tier 3. Can they come and shoot? So just some further clarification on the travel aspects. Volunteers and coaches, as long as they are integral to the activity taking place, can travel in and out of tier 3 areas for volunteering. So we've said all along in our guidance that unnecessary volunteers should be discouraged, so that will be part of your risk assessments. You'll know which volunteers you need to ensure that your sessions can happen safely. So those volunteers and any coaches can travel for volunteering purposes. There are exemptions for under 18s and disabled people, so they can travel and take part in activity. Unfortunately, everybody else is obviously being asked to avoid travelling in or out of tier 3 areas unless it's for those exemptions. We have talked to our insurers about this as well, and if members then go against government and our advice, then that may then invalidate the insurance. So we are saying, in terms of travelling, then we are saying do not travel in or out of tier 3 areas. We would like it if clubs and members could provide guest memberships. So if we've got members that can't travel to their own club, is there a way that your club or another club could provide them the opportunity to shoot, so they don't spend more months without having the opportunity to shoot? And quite a specific question here, but we've had it from a number of people, so just wanted to flag it up. Somebody from the club has had a positive test. Do we have to shut down? Well, first of all, that person should have been contacted by the NHS or Public Health England or whoever who is doing it locally, and then the person that's had the positive test will be asked to provide all the details of where they've been and whether they've been in close contact with anybody else. Only if you're told to, if the NHS or Public Health contact you or your members, should they be a need to isolate, if you're only told to do so. Your members should be aware if they develop symptoms to obviously follow the points in our guidance and follow the points here in terms of getting a test and self-isolating. You would not need to close the club unless you were instructed to do so. If there was multiple cases, then it may be that you need to review your systems and risk assessments, and you may have to close to give time for additional cleaning. But obviously, you may have to just look at what's you've put in place and to and where those multiple cases might have happened. It might not have had anything to do with archery whatsoever. It might have had something to do with either a social gathering outside of archery, but it might be a good time to just review your systems and make sure that that everything is in order. Okay, so that's the end of the short presentation. So I'm going to get rid of the screen and then we can go back to the questions.
Okay, Abby has asked for in tier 3 for recurves, can they have one face above and one below on the centre for one household?
Alan, I asked that question before Dave McCulloch answered, so I think we can move on. Thank you.
You're happy with that? That's lovely. Thanks.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah. So, tier 3, Paul asks, tier 3, does that mean only one person household can shoot at a time? How does that work for setting up and packing away indoor venues?
Pete, we were talking about this earlier. Can you
yes,
give my voice a bit of a break?
Yes, I can. Good evening, everybody. So I'm Pete, and I sit on the Strategic Advisory Group with Aaron and co and others. Okay, so your risk assessments will show whether or not you can set up your range, and it's very important that if you're not able to set up your range and remain safe within the distances, that you're using appropriate PPE. If you're not able to do that, sadly, you probably won't be able to use your range. If you are able to set up the range, for example, where you've got one single family group or bubble setting up per boss, then it's likely that could go ahead and you could work it for your range. So it is all down to whether or not you may cause cross-infection between one group of people and another. So it's about limiting the exposure between each other. So does that explain that answer for you?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Pete. It basically means we can't shoot. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry for that. That you can't. If there was some way you could work it, then I don't know what to suggest for you.
Okay. We have a question from Hilary. The 3.3 metre indoors distance is assuming a 122 centimetre target face. If using a 60 centimetre Portsmouth face, can the indoor distance be 2.6 metres apart without the use of screens? Shall
I do this again, Aaron?
Yeah, I can probably add something as well.
Okay. The screens are required when you're using 2 meters between the archers, because clearly the virus could spread between those people. With distances below 3.6, I think it is 3.3 indoors, then you are still going to require screens between people. When that distance is 3.6 or more, then you probably would be able to manage without screens. Aaron?
Yeah, I suppose it also depends what you might be using a 60 centimetre face, but is it on a 60 centimetre boss, or is it on the same size boss that we're talking about? So ultimately, it's the distance between the boss centres we're talking about, regardless of the face sizes.
Right, if I could just clarify then, the boss centres are 2.6 metres apart, which means that the edges of the targets are 2 metres apart. On the shooting line, we're standing 2.6 metres apart. So, to my mind, we're always more than 2 metres apart from each other.
Are the target bosses 60 centimetres?
The target bosses are full size 122 centimetre or 130 centimetre bosses.
Yeah.
But the actual centres of the 60 centimetre faces are 2.6 metres apart.
Right. Okay. So for clarity, we're using target boss centres because otherwise we need to ensure that there's consistency. So we're using the distance between target boss centres. So regardless of the face size, if you're using a smaller face on the same size target boss, unfortunately, you will need to follow the distances that we put in place.
But I've just said our target boss centres are 2.6 metres apart. So you're saying that the actual centres of the faces have to be 3.3 metres apart, full stop.
May I, Aaron?
It's nothing to do with 2 metres. It's nothing to do with social distancing of 2 metres. You're making it over 3 metres.
Okay, I understand how there could be some confusion. So let's argue that the boss centres are 2 metres apart, or let's say they're 3 point whatever they are for you. Did you say 3.6 meters?
No, I said 2.6 meters.
Okay.
The reason why I'm trying to get exactly what the answer is that if we can use 2.6 meters apart for the center of the faces, then we can actually continue shooting.
Okay. Well, the answer is you can have 2.6 meter centers. What you need to consider there in terms of your risk assessment is there a likelihood at the boss that people can come closer together than 2 meters? And resolving that issue is probably quite straightforward. The way that some clubs are doing it is if you all shoot at the same time, one group, for example, lane 1, lane 3, lane 5 and lane 7 go and collect their arrows, and then followed by lanes 2, 4 and 6. So people don't have an opportunity at the boss to become within 2 meters of each other. Does that help?
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. I mean, as long as it's clear that we're talking about 2 meter separation of the individuals, then we don't have a problem with that. If we're saying that we have to be 3.3 meters separate, then we're dead in the water.
No, we're not. Is you happy with the answer?
I'm happy with the answer. It's not what you've written in your guidance.
Well, I think that might be something that if you allow us a day or so to talk that through, because what I don't want to do is we've got 840 clubs with 840 different settings, and I'm not providing guidance for 840 different settings. What I'd like to do is provide a single set of guidance that works for the majority. So Hilary, if you allow us a day or so just to come back to you on that, and obviously we will have to look at all of this anyway if DCMS have issued new guidance in the last hour or so. We'll talk that through and we'll come back to you and we'll give you the clarity that you need. Okay.
Yes, I mean, I would just say that I raised this back in August and my interpretation was agreed that it was correct and that your guidance was going to be amended. And that's why I'm raising it now, because your guidance hasn't been amended.
Yeah, a lot of things have happened since August, so apologies for that. So what we're dealing with the here and now. So we'll talk about that over the next day or so, and we'll get back to you. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Aaron. As I say, it's critical for our club.
Yeah, I totally understand that in some cases the guidance that we've issued and what then is implemented at a local level can be very difficult for some clubs to achieve. I realise that, and that's the fine balance that we're trying to achieve here. That we want to issue guidance that keeps everybody safe, but at the same time does allow clubs to open. So we do get that, yeah, just give us a day or so just to talk that through, and we'll clarify.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Hilary.
Okay, Gordon has asked, are there any documents which I can use to help the discussions with our indoor leisure centre where we shoot to allow us to restart archery?
Yep, so we've got the summary document and we've got all the club, the archer and the coach documents. So they're available on the website, as I said earlier. If you can't find them, then let me know and we can send you everything.
Aaron, sorry to jump in, it's Gordon. I'm after something that is a document, say from the government or from another advisory body, that I can actually take to show them to say that this is what the new guidance is.
Well, those documents of our documents, are you saying that they're not sufficient?
I was really looking for something not from Archery GB, perhaps from a government organisation. Just looking for as much information that I can get, that I can actually say the government is saying one thing, but Archery GB is saying another thing, and this other organisation is saying, hey, that's fine, you can go and do it. Well, then you may be doing anyway. I think you may be revising things.
Yeah,
and we'll perhaps see what comes after that.
Yeah. Okay. Jane's just put the link to the DCMS portion of the government's website, which is the grassroots sports guidance for public and sports providers. That has, as we just talked about a minute ago, that has been updated by the look of it this afternoon or late this afternoon. So that's the document that we're looking at as well, and to draw up the guidance. So. That's with the documents that we've got, that should give you everything you need. If it's not, come back to me and we can look at that.
It's David again.
Hi, David.
Just on that point, just to make it clear to people, the way this works is that the government, centrally issue rules and regulations, then DCMS look at the sporting angle of those things, and then they talk to the national governing bodies about how that relates to their sport, and they are the experts in their sport, and the DCMS will clarify a few items, but effectively whatever comes out of Archery GB is the definitive guidance as far as the government is concerned for archery, because we are the experts in our sport. It's the same for every sport. I'm one of the directors of a complex with about 8 sports on, and each sport, it's their national governing body guidance that they are required to meet, and that's been agreed with DCMS. So that document has got status maybe that people aren't giving it credit for.
We have sought, thank you, David. We have sought some clarification from DCMS. I did get a response from Sport England last night, but I didn't get a response from DCMS. They were probably waiting to issue this guidance, which they've done this afternoon, late this afternoon, based on the fact that obviously Parliament is voting on the activities, the tier activities at the moment. there does look like there's some clarification on the DCMS website. I'm just looking at it now in terms of they've got they've got 4 phases, and we just need to go and have a look at that, and we'll come back to everybody as soon as possible if we think there's been some major changes that do make archery not able to happen at tier 3 levels.
May I add to that, Aaron, please?
Yes.
Okay, so the person that asked the question, you're talking about your provider wanting more information, and there are 4 key documents in all of this information provision. The 3 documents that come from Archery GB in terms of the club, the coaching and the archers are very, very key. And the 4th document is the document provided by you that is your risk assessment on your perspective of risk on that particular venue. If you can provide those 4 documents for your provider, usually that should be sufficient.
Okay.
I think, sorry, just jumping in, I've got the same problem for our club. The problem is our venue have turned around and said indoor physical activity cannot take place, therefore we cannot return. The government advice is unless it's under 18s or disabled indoors, sorry, you can't come back.
Sorry, who was that was just speaking just then?
Sorry, it's Paul Moody.
Oh, thanks, Paul. I think Gordon, you had the same issue, didn't you? In terms of we had an email conversation about that.
We did, Aaron. I've actually not got as far as I've actually told our indoor centre that we're having this session tonight, but I've not actually gone back to them and said, well, Archery. Now they're very, very good. I'm just looking to see if A, I've got something that I can actually use, and B, I don't want any of our members to be getting bills for £200 for contravening government rules.
Yeah. Just looking quickly, and I do need some time to have a look at it, and the volunteers we're using will look at it as well. But it does say that non-contact, socially distant activity only in tiers 2 and tier 3. So it does look like to me that archery could still carry on looking at the new guidance, but that's just having a quick look at it now. I will need to spend some time reviewing it. So for now, this is what we're saying, and hopefully that will be the case tomorrow. And therefore, if you've got issues with leisure centre providers, we're here to provide any information that you need that will help help them come to the right decision.
Okay. A few questions that we've probably covered, so I'm going to skip over those, but if you feel like they haven't been answered sufficiently, then please just let us know in the chat. Damien is asking, does the rule of 6 apply at an outdoor range?
The guidance that I read said yes, that rule of 6 does apply. But obviously we're talking about away from the shooting line. So on a shooting line, we're saying obviously up to 4 on a target, but away from the shooting line, then if you are gathering in groups, then it should be a maximum of 6. And I think that's just for tier 1 and 2 areas. For tier 3 areas, I think it's more kind of individuals.
Okay, Gary has asked, what are the exemptions for disabled archers?
We do have a document on our website that details more information about disabled participation, but ultimately the exemptions for under 18s and disabled people are the same, is that the activity can carry on without limits.
Mandy has asked, can tier 3 travel to another tier 3?
No, you're not able to do that. So I have the same issue in my hockey club. We're in tier 3. We're right on the Nottinghamshire-Lincolnshire border, and I've got 20 or 30 members who live in tier 3 also, but in Lincolnshire, and they cannot come and train at the club. So unfortunately, you cannot leave one tier 3 area and go to another tier 3 area.
Okay. Neil has asked, the rule of 6 still applies outdoors, suggesting that one coach can coach 2 groups of up to 6 at the same time seems to go against that.
I think in the guidance it does say that coaches can work across multiple groups. So that's I shall just have a quick look. Yeah, group coaching. Yeah, 1 to 12 recommended ratios. So I don't think there's any issue there. Okay, yeah. So I think I might have mixed up the rule of 6, so I do apologise for this. What we say in the guidance notes for coaches, which I encourage you to go and have a look at. So coaching outdoors is that sessions can take place in groups of more than 6, and our recommended ratio is 1 coach up to 12. The groups of 6 is coaching indoors at tiers 2 and 3. So you can work across separate groups of 6 people, so up to a maximum of 2 groups. So that's the 12 there. So and obviously indoors, no mixing of participants that don't belong to the same household or bubble.
Okay, Sue has asked, are screens required on the shooting line and up at the targets?
May I, Aaron?
Yes, of course, Pete.
Okay, the answer to this is screens are not required at the targets, but so just having them on the shooting line is sufficient. And the way you get around the issue of crowding at the bosses is to split the lanes. So we said before, say 1, 3, 5, go and collect, and 2, 4, go and collect afterwards. And that way you separate the archers, keeping them safe at all times. Does that help you, Sue?
Yep, just pop in the chat if you have further questions on that. So the next one is, if we are using booking in system and timed slots with the indoor venue, sanitizer, etc. between slots, individual faces and target pins, are we okay to have, for example, 4 times 1 hour slots per session for people to book into?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the sessions one after the other, then you should build in some time to do that sanitizing, change the faces, that kind of stuff, so that people have got time to clear out, you clean up, and then the next lot can come in.
So may I comment on that, please, Helen? A good practice would be probably something like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, where the people that are using their own faces, the target faces and pins, remove those, take them away with them, and then the range captain or volunteer team, probably, as we know, 1 or 2 people, will spray down the bosses in readiness for the new set of archers to turn up for their session. Thank you.
Great. Gary is just pointing out that the risk assessment file on the website is opening as blank for him. So
I've just downloaded it now, Gary, and it worked for me. So I'm not too sure what the issue is there. If it's still happening for you, I can just send it to you directly by email.
Okay, going back to setting up in a tier 2 area with no mixing of households. Can households use face coverings so that they can come within 2 meters while setting up? That's in tier 2.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier on in terms of setting up the range.
Sorry, Aaron, just to be absolutely clear, this is a key point for us.
Yeah.
So we have 2 or 3 households, as long as they've got face coverings, they can come within 2 meters to help set up and then go into their lanes. That is allowed in under tier 2.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's what we're saying. As long as you've obviously risk assessment and your risk assessment's up to date, and everybody's following the measures that you put in place. Absolutely.
Fine, thank you.
I think that's called 1 meter plus with mitigating circumstances, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just scrolling through the questions, there are a few that I'm not reading because I feel like we have addressed them. But if you feel that you still want to ask, then please post again in the chat.
All right, if I talk, Aaron, it's Mandy.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to. Go on. How
it's
are
just
you?
very quick because I've only come in sort of like halfway through. Right. We don't know whether we can shoot indoors anyway at Magnus, the same as you for hockey. But we're tier 3. We have 6 bosses. They're 3.3 from the centre of the boss to the centre of the other boss.
Yeah.
We don't have screens. We have some households that are together so they can set up their boss. But obviously we also have potentially 5 single households in shooting. Are you saying now that we can't have, say, me and another archer dressed in full PPE, i.e. mask, gloves, that we can't set the boss up so that both of us can shoot on 2 separate bosses?
Okay, shall I, Aaron?
Yeah.
Hello, Mandy.
Hello.
Okay, so just try, the distances matter because the idea is to provide a single piece of clear guidance for you. If you are inside 3.3, Aaron, or 6? I can't remember now.
3.3.
Right. If you're inside 3.3, then you require screens. If you're outside 3.3, then the distances seem sufficient to prevent the risk of infection across that distance. If you can maintain those distances without screens, then you will be fulfilling the requirements of your risk assessment as long as you have this stated in your risk assessment. So clearly you have to state this, that you're maintaining these distances so that your provider is comfortable with the safe systems that you have in place. Does that help, Mandy?
So, well, we've only got 3.3. That's all we can do. So you're saying that we need screens for 3.3?
I would say you probably do, yes, need screens. Hopefully you've tapped into the various sources of grant support that would help you get that and make it work for yourself.
I think 3.3 is the point that you don't need screens, so we need to be careful of that. It's if they are 3.3, that's where screens disappear, if you pardon the expression.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought because we are spot on 3.3 distance between every single boss across the sports hall, and we don't have the funds to keep going out and buying screens and things.
I think your question was more about setting up, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The other thing was because obviously, we've got 6 bosses. That's potentially 5 individual archers. So what I want to know is those who aren't in the same bubble or household, because it takes 2 to set up a boss. So you're saying that if you're not from the same household, you can't set up a boss to actually do archery. That's what. So say it's me and one of my fellow archers. I can't set up a boss on my own because they're too big and it's health and safety. I've got gloves on. I've got a face mask on. They've got gloves on. They've got a face mask on. They're on one side of the boss. I'm on the other, and we put it on the stand. Are you saying we can't do that?
No, we're not. We're saying that you can do that because you have mitigating. So you have mitigating PPE, that you're able to work closely. Remember, the start of Aaron's presentation was about reducing the time that you are close together. If you have to go within the 2 meters of each other, then wear the PPE that's appropriate. So you've got your masks, you've got your gloves, you set up the boss, then you move away.
Okay, now that's spot on. I wasn't here for the first few minutes.
Okay. That's
so
okay.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thanks, Mandy.
Okay, Kienda's asked, for outdoor shooting, do we still require field captain and volunteer crew members? Oh, sorry, there's just been amended. For outdoor shooting, do we still require non-shooting field captains and volunteer crew members?
I think ultimately, as long as the session, whether it's indoors or outdoors, is being managed, the risk assessment is being followed, people are following the social distancing and the hygiene standards that you're putting in place, somebody who is also shooting can be field captain.
Sorry, Aaron, can I just say hi?
Hi.
How are you anyway?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks, Aaron. What it was causing us a certain amount of a problem with the number of volunteers we were able to get, given that we were under the belief that we absolutely must have a certain number of volunteers and a field captain non-shooting, and getting those together, getting those people to come forward and do that provided a certain amount of a challenge.
Yeah.
And caused us to have to cancel a number of sessions. And so I just wanted to know whether or not, it was still the case that person had to be a non-shooting field captain. But I think you've answered the question, but I don't know if there's anything more.
Yeah, like I said, as long as in terms of setting up the session and we are a safe sport. You guys do things fantastically at your sessions. Somebody is always a field captain, is always in charge of that session, ensuring that everybody is safe before they start shooting again once they've collected the arrows, etc. As long as the session is being managed like that, and somebody is in control and can say, excuse me, you two, you need to ensure 2 meters. Have you washed your hands regularly, etc., then we're happy that the field captain, etc., can shoot at the same time.
Thanks.
And also something in addition to that, this process was all about growth and learning from Archery GB's perspective. When we first started with the risk assessments, we were concerned that the archers may not be as disciplined as we would like them to be. As it turned out, we're all very disciplined. It's a really highly disciplined sport. So although we wanted to see a separate volunteer range captain from the beginning, what we actually discovered was it wasn't really necessary, because the range captain quite often manages the range and manages to shoot as well. So the control systems were over the top at first. We've now recognised that actually when we draw them back a little bit, they still work perfectly well.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Pete. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Pete. It's better to be overcautious and then be know that everything's enforced, and then kind of relax, for want of a better word, rather than doing it the other way around.
Okay, Joyce has asked, now that 4 people are allowed per target outdoors, does this mean that archers do not need to take their own face away and bring it back each time they shoot?
Okay, so you don't have to jump straight to four people, so it is up to 4 people. So if you didn't have 4 people previously and you still want to maintain at 1 household or 2 people, then you obviously can stay at that. If you're saying we're going to have up to 4 people, then as long as that people are wearing gloves, sanitizing their hands, only touching their own arrows, using methods to extract their arrows without touching the face, which I'm told is achievable in many cases, then that face can be left there or just used put up and taken away by one person and disposed of as need be.
Okay, I think we've reached the end or the bottom of the questions. There are a few that we've skipped over, but I hope that they have been answered by other people. But if there are any other questions.
Sorry, yes, it's Maxine. I do apologise. I've been trying to send a question and it just wouldn't go through because I'm out walking. My question is regarding the guidance about under 18s.
Yeah.
And I've just got it up. Thank you for putting the link. So it says in tier 3 areas, obviously you're advised not to travel. We discussed that.
Yeah.
Travel is permitted where it is necessary to enable sport for disabled people, sport for educational purposes, or supervised sport and physical activity for under 18s.
Yeah.
Then it does still say that should be kept to travel should be only a short distance only. So I just trying to explore that because we're tier 3, so we can't go anywhere because we have no archery clubs in tier 3. And I'm assuming I don't see actually how we could go for a supervised session at our tier 2 club. So I'm assuming that is still just not something that can happen. It was a supervised session that sort of confused me.
Right. Okay. So what I think that means really is that they just don't go and do something on their own. So as long as there is a coach or volunteer that is making sure that they are doing the activity safely, I would suggest that that's what supervised activities mean. It wouldn't mean it wouldn't mean a parent potentially, because what you would have to potentially take the under 18s to the activity, but you wouldn't be able to take part in the activity yourself unless I suppose you were a coach or a volunteer.
And then I'd have to make sure that the coach who came was willing to be in a room with a tier 3 person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maxine.
Can I just add to that point, Aaron? It's Susan.
Hello.
Obviously, when juniors are involved, there also needs to be 2 adults in the room at all times with a junior. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Safeguarding welfare needs to be considered in all of this as well. Absolutely. Thank you for making that point.
So obviously that's on the DCMS website, which is probably covers, obviously trying to cover various sports. But can that be made clear then in our guidance?
Yes.
I'm not sure if it already is. As I say, because for me, what that basically means is you're not going to have a junior from a tier 3 area going for any supervised activity in a tier 2, because if you've got to have 2 adults, one of them who's going to be a coach to do that supervised activity, it's really just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maxine.
Okay, Kate has asked, in tier 3, under the rule of 6, we have 1 household per boss outside. Can we have 8 bosses, or should we reduce to 6 to ensure the rule of 6 is kept?
So the rule of 6 is not applying when you're shooting like you're describing there. If you've got 1 household per boss outside, if you've got a field big enough, you could have 350 bosses if you wanted and 350 people shooting. They're a minimum of 3.66 meters apart, and therefore the rule of 6 is talking about gatherings. We're not talking about gatherings. We're talking about archery taking place. So you can have 8 bosses and you can have 1 household per boss. If the households are quite big, then we would recommend increasing the distance to 4 and 5 meters.
And Mike, it's good to see you on the call, Mike. Can Aaron summarise the Tier 3 situation for archery following the latest update tonight? Mike, you probably weren't able to get on. I know you had problems earlier, but we are going to need a little bit of time to look at that and see how it affects the guidance. We did talk about that a little bit earlier. Sorry, you probably missed that.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, just there is some additional. I think someone said it was at 5:45. I was throwing some food down my throat at that point and ready for tonight. So we will get on that. That's the rest of my evening ruined now. Looking at DCMS guidance, and
my evening as well. Probably soon.
Yeah, as soon as we've got some further clarity, but we'll get it out there. But from what I've seen so far, it doesn't look like there shouldn't be much changes. But yeah, give us a day and we'll sort it.
Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Okay, that's all. I think that's all the questions addressed. But please shout up if we've missed yours, or if you thought of another one.
I have some comments for the whole meeting. So it's Pete again. Okay, so one thing we're not good at as archery clubs is going back to our provider and negotiating the terms upon which we have our ranges. Now, some of you will have your own archery ranges, but most of us hire somewhere from another sport. Now, what we need to be cognizant of during these difficult times is some sports are actually having more difficulties. So any sport that works closely together, like football, basketball, etc., are simply not going to be able to use the spaces like archery is. This could be an opportunity for archery to blossom, where you could work with your provider and suggest to them, using the risk assessments that we are pushing your way and that you can work for yourself, that archery will work in your venue. Please go and try it. It may be worth it. And the venue that we use, our provider has suggested we could use an additional night, bringing us up to 4 sessions per week indoors, whereas we probably never would have considered that prior to this terrible pandemic.
Okay, there was a question I just missed there. Thank you, Malcolm. Malcolm asks, you've mentioned gloves a number of times. Is it a requirement to use gloves to set up?
I think you need to wear whatever PPE is needed to set up. You know, gloves are needed in terms of avoiding splinters, for want of a, you know, or making sure there is no contamination. And, as you know, hands need to be sanitized, gloves need to be worn, other things, face shields, coverings need to be worn if there's an opportunity of getting closer than 1 meter or cross contamination may happen. So it needs to be as part of your risk assessment. Every club's different, so you know you need to go through that risk assessment yourself and work out what needs to be done to set up your range.
Yeah, we have discussed this quite a bit. I mean, in the club, this was a big topic of conversation because some people thought you've got to wear gloves because you've got to, you know, that protects us. Others felt, well, actually, gloves make it worse because you can't clean gloves. You can clean your hands before you start using shared equipment. You then move the equipment and then you clean your hands after you've used shared equipment, and that is safer than using gloves. So I just wanted to make it. I just wanted to understand whether you are saying you have to wear gloves or whether it is or not, or whether you're not saying that.
May I, Aaron?
Yes, of course, Pete.
Okay, so we know this can be challenging for all of us in terms of do we, don't we? Some simple things that clubs might want to offer their archers is, look, if you touch anything that does not belong to you, not your gear, it's somebody else's boss, etc., then sanitize, clean your hands. Absolutely must. Sanitize before you come into the range. If you touch a boss that does not belong to you, then you sanitize again. If the boss is covered in splinters, it's appropriate to wear gloves, because I've had a few sharp incidents, and I'm sure most of you sitting in front of me have had all those, you know, sharp incidents. So use the PPE that's appropriate, and what you're trying to do, whether or not you wear gloves, is to stop the spread of the infection. So sanitize before, sanitize afterwards, whatever you do.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Happy with that. Thank you.
Karen has put a good point there in reference to what we were talking about a minute ago. Local authorities have also recently received more grant funding to support business ratepayers, and they've managed to get another small grant for the November lockdown from their council. So if you have your own range and you are business rated space, check out what your authority is offering. Thank you for that, Karen.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Karen. Also, Sport England have reopened their small grants programme, and it does include running costs now because of the massive increase of that have been passed on to grassroots providers. So, so have a look at that information from Sport England small grants programme. I'm led to believe by someone from Sport England that if you receive money in the summer from them, you still can apply as long as you meet the criteria. If any of you have any issues, want to talk through that, then Helen or I will be happy to talk to you. There is lots of funding out there at the moment. It is geared towards organisations that are suffering because of the virus. So, you know, have a look and see what your local council is providing, or, you know, county councillors and district councillors often have pots of money that you can tap into. Obviously, the local funding is easier to get hold of. If you're going to go to Sport England, it will take a number of weeks for that application to be looked at. It might take up to 8 to 10 weeks to receive any money. So it's probably more for a substantial grant that you go for, but you can go for up to £10,000 and as low as £300. So anybody that is looking at some funding, wants any further advice, then please just get in touch. And actually get in touch with Mandy, because she's just got some money.
And the link to more information is in the chat box there if you want it.
And also, it took a week.
A week? Oh, that's even better.
Took them a week to get back to me and do the award and then the paperwork. So it's there, guys. So go for it. And they'll supply all the sanitizer equipment as well to last you 6 months. So it's all there.
Okay. Graham, you've got your hand up and you've just put a note in the chat box. Was your small grant submitted recently or in the summer?
It was submitted in September, October.
Okay, I think they changed their rules in the last month or so.
Okay, thanks. So
yeah, a couple of months ago they weren't accepting running costs. We had this issue early on. I think some clubs were managed to sneak through before they realised they would probably run out of money, and then they changed their guidance. But in the last month or so, they have changed to accepting applications based on running costs.
So do I go through the full application form again as a new application?
Did you get a letter from them?
I got an email back saying basically go forth and multiply.
Right. Okay. Did it say that you could edit your application and resubmit?
No.
Right. Okay. I would suggest then you resubmit. You should be able to print off your application or download it, and then you.
I've got it saved.
Yeah. You should be able to just copy and paste most of it then.
Okay. Thanks very much, Aaron.
Happy to look through that if you want a fresh pair of eyes to look at it.
It's going to take me a couple of days, so it might not get to you till next week.
That's all right. I think the rest of this week is written off for me anyway. Did you have another question, Graham, or was it related to that?
No, that was it.
Okay, no worries.
Joyce has asked in the chat, is there any merit in obtaining and using a QR code for our venue?
Shall I answer this?
Yes, thanks, Pete.
Okay, so Wyndham Archers in Norfolk have 2 venues. One we manage and one we do not manage. So the QR code on the premises that we do not manage is provided by the premises manager, the premises provider. So it's their duty to do that. We have our own outdoor range, which we license from another place. So that's our property to manage. And we have provided our own QR code. Now, our club secretary obtained our QR code in about 15 minutes during one session. It's really easy to get sorted out. So I advise you that if you manage a site, then it is your duty to obtain and post up, encapsulate, whatever, a QR code.
Ultimately, you need to keep a record for 21 days of everybody that comes to your sessions. So it does say that if you're not able to provide a QR code you're in people can't download it, they need to give you the details. So the bare minimum is keeping people's records for 21 days. But as Pete said, if you're able to do that, then it's good to go down that route.
Aaron, it's David. An interesting point that again, going back to the fact that we have a large complex, and sometimes, we split it up into several venues for the purposes of QR codes. So the hockey pitch is a venue and the tennis court's a venue. But then when we've got a big field that's used by cricket, football and archery, we were able to split it up into 3 venues. For when it's used by archery was one QR code, because they were so far away from the footballers that there's no chance of cross-contamination. So it's worth thinking about, even if you're working on somebody else's premises, worth thinking about and setting up venues so you don't actually get roped in with somebody else's problem, because that's the issue.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Thank you, David. So I think we're probably coming to the end of the session. We're inside the 8:30 mark, which is nice. Happily take any more questions, or if we've had enough, then some people have already left. Feel free to slip off into the night, and we will make the questions available, that the chat that everybody's asked. We'll make this video available, and we obviously need to go and read the guidance that's been issued late this afternoon and see whether there's any amendments we need to make.
Just to mention as well, I put a feedback link in the chat box for you to let us know about your views about tonight, and also just to point you all to upcoming webinars that we'll be holding in the new year. So do keep an eye out over the next week or so. Should be seeing details of those coming out for January and February.
Is there somebody's hand up?
I think that might.
It's me.
Hello, who's that?
It's Chris Joyce.
Oh, hi Chris, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Just a quick one. Which day can we resume shooting? Is it Wednesday or Thursday?
1 minute past midnight tomorrow morning.
So it's Wednesday?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's all. We had a debate on our Knots Archery yesterday, so thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, okay, thanks Chris.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, I think that's the end of the session then. Thank you very much for those that are still here all the way to the end. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate your patience as well in terms of us giving the answers, and obviously giving us the opportunity just to double check the guidance that's been set out. But looking forward to seeing pictures of you back on the range, especially outdoors. And if you have any further questions, want to talk about anything else comes to mind, then either send an email to membership@archerygb.org and one of the team will get back to you, normally me, or just email me or ring me, whatever you want, and we'll try and answer everything that you ask. But really appreciate you taking the time out to be with us tonight. Thank you to Pete, David and Susan for allowing my voice to be rested now and again. And thanks to Helen for helping out. And that's it. Thank you very much. You may go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Happy week, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Good night.
Just
Thank you.
laughing at
Nice.
Declan saying he'd be out.